Getting the show going here. Give me a second. How's everybody doing? You got a big weekend planned?
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everybody and welcome. This is Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio. How's everybody doing today? This is Loco Friday. Muchas gracias for being here today. Hope everybody's in good spirit. I hope you have a really good summer vacation planned. Everything looks beautiful in America, at least as far as the weather. All right, we're going to have a shortened show, only because I got to get someplace. As you probably know, I've said this numerous times. This is citizen journalism, and I got to travel a long way today to get to a project over a long ways away, over by, well, it's called Arrowhead. Probably not familiar to you, but it's between Gunnison and Montrose. So I'm going to cut the show short. But I'm here, you know, I got everything packed up. I've been racing around like a crazy Iranian trying to get all my stuff together to go do this job over the weekend. But I got to do it. I want to get out of here a little bit earlier so that I can, you know, get there and good time and not have to be all freaked out, because everything's going to be on my mind, you know, about this trip. It's kind of a big trip. I had to work on my truck and get everything packed up. I mean, you know how it is. I mean, I don't mean to drag you into the minutia of the Trailer Park Prophet in his life. The first story, of course, is what's going on in Iraq. If you haven't heard, our president has sent jets over Iraq to take out some of those IS terrorists who are just totally terrorizing Iraq. There's all kinds of stories coming out of Iraq. And it's interesting, you know, I mean, they're probably like a day, 2 days old, so it's really hard to know exactly what's going on. But President Obama announced yesterday, or was it today, I can't remember, we got that tape of the president talking about why he felt it was necessary for him to send in, I believe it was 2 F-16s to take out a battery, a cannon, one of those big cannons. They were using that cannon, the ISIS, the radical Islamist in Iraq, to further their military cause. And in case you don't know, man, ISIS has taken over several towns. They took over, I think they took over Mosul, and they took over, I'm trying to think of that one big town. But they're trying to take over these 2 major reservoirs in Iraq, and they got control of one, and they're trying to take over another. And a bunch of Christians are up on top of this mountain without any provisions, and if they come down out of the mountain, they're going to get killed by these radical Islamists, the ISIS, or if they stay on top of this mountain, they're going to starve to death and run out of water. And so the president announced, I believe either today or yesterday, it says here, a nationally televised address, President Obama said that he also had authorized targeted airstrikes to protect American personnel if forces from the Islamic State advance to or on the city of Erbil. And it says that the capital, Iraq's, let's see, to protect American forces from the Islamic State advance on the city of Erbil, the capital of Iraq's autonomous Kurdish region. So that's up north and a little bit to the east. If they attack this Kurdish region, and of course radical Islamics do not like the Kurds because they're another type of Islam, or they're not Islam. I can't really remember exactly the religious standing of the Kurds, and they're saying that the United States still maintains a large consulate, a recently expanded CIA station, and a military joint operation command center. And of course, the president's using the safety of Americans as why he is interceded in Iraq militarily. And remember, President Obama said that the war in Iraq was a stupid war, and now we're back in Iraq. Now, I'm glad. I mean, I think we should have stayed there. President Obama, I think, made a huge decision that I believe that was wrong by not keeping a residual force in Afghanistan and also in Iraq, because if we would have kept a large contingent of military, our U.S. military in Iraq, this would not be going on right now. So this whole Obama policy in terms of Iraq is just falling apart. And the president said, "I will not allow the United States to be dragged into another war in Iraq." He said, however, that the United States could not stand by idly as thousands of Iraqis face certain death, and that the move was intended to prevent a potential act of genocide. The United States cannot and should not intervene every time there is a crisis in the world. So let me be clear, his famous phrase, about why we must act, and act now. Obama said, "When we face a situation like we do on the mountain with innocent people facing the prospect of violence on a horrific scale, when we have a mandate to help, and when we have the unique capacities to help prevent a massacre, then I believe the United States of America cannot turn a blind eye." Well, you know, what about what's going on in Nigeria with Boko Haram? We're turning a blind eye to that. We never have got those 300 girls that were kidnapped back in May back yet. It says that the Obama administration has been studying what options it might take to thwart the Islamic State since the radical group seized control of Mosul. Mentioned that earlier. And what's the name of that other town they captured? Iraqi's second largest city is Mosul. In early June, then swept north and central Iraq in a campaign that saw the Iraqi army dissolve in disarray. Until Thursday, however, U.S. officials have offered no hint of what steps they might take to assist the Iraqi government, whose army is yet to be able to mount a successful counterattack to reverse the Islamic State gains. And one of the reasons, you know, the Iraqi army is having such a difficult time is they're not really used to participating in modern warfare, and that's why it was so important to keep the Americans there to help continue train and the Iraqi military and you know be able to assist them in how to take on a force like the ISIS. A statement from the Pentagon distributed shortly after the president spoke said one C-17 aircraft and two C-130s had dropped a total of 72 bundles of supplies to the thousands of members of the Yazidi religious minority who have fled to the mountains near the city of Zincar after Islamic extremists seized the city. And they also dropped off 5,000 gallons of fresh drinking water. And then it was two FA-18 fighter jets accompanied by the cargo planes, but no ground troops were involved. You know what? You know there's ground troops involved, I bet, because a lot of times with these precision bombs, there has to be somebody on the ground that has a laser light on the target. I think that's the case, but I might be wrong. I know I've read that a bunch of times, but I got to be careful not to say something I don't really know definitively. And it says, the U.S. officials briefing reporters said the mission was completed shortly before the president spoke at 9:30 p.m. on Thursday in Washington, but early Friday in Iraq, planning for the airdrop began last Saturday, the officials said. So see there again, it's been going on since last Saturday. That's what I mean about how fresh is the news that we're actually getting. Obviously, these people have been in peril for a week now. Man, I just couldn't imagine what that would be like. And we've reported on this group, this ISIS group. They're beheading people. They're committing genocide. Basically, they're doing mass murders and burying people in pits. I mean, these people with this ISIS are just simply savages. Which, by the way, I'm going to keep saying ISIS, but I've been reading more and more, and ISIS has changed their name to ISIL, and that it's more of a recognition of that area which is called the Savant, and it's been called that from, probably like the last 1,500 years, I'm just guessing. But they actually have another name, so we still have to learn a lot about who these people are that we're calling the ISIS. But one thing for sure, they're savages, and we know they're savages because they're very proud to release all this information to the press, and they want all this stuff on the social media sites. That's, all over the Facebook, you can see pictures that ISIS putting up various kinds of atrocities, videos on Facebook. So they want to intimidate people. They're not afraid to let people know what they're all about. And it's another form of terrorism and psychological warfare that they seem to be more than willing to perpetrate on the people of Iraq to send a message to the whole world that ISIS is not to be fooled with. They're not to be reckoned with. That they're way beyond being talked to. That they probably feel as though they're on a mission from God. So it's really scary to think about what is going on. And I really, I've been thinking about these Kurds and the people up on the hill all day, and you really got to wonder, man, what in the hell is going on? Now the Mosul Dam. There's two big dams that the ISIS is trying to get a hold of. Now, the Mosul Dam has fallen to the Islamic State, U.S. and Kurdish officials confirmed. It is the largest such structure in Iraq, controls a major Iraqi watershed, and amid fears that the Islamic State could unleash a torrent of water and inundate hundreds of square miles of Iraq. And that's their biggest fear, because the ISIS is Sunni, and if they were to blow up this Mosul Dam, they would take out the Shiites. And not only that, they would take out a lot of other people too, and they would set Iraq back, 15, 20 years. And it's really an awful, horrible thing that they're considering doing. But why even take over a country that you've destroyed? But, we'll have to see if they're going to be participating in that level of savageness on these people. Let's see. And it says that, according to this guy, Fala Barkar, the foreign minister of the Kurdish regional government, said in an interview with CNN that the Kurds faced disaster and needed immediate assistance. We are left alone in the front to fight the terrorists of ISIS, he said, using an acronym for the Islamic State, which used to call itself the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. That's the ISIS. So now they're, what did he say they're calling them? Well, I guess he's still calling them the ISIS. And I keep forgetting that's what it's called. The ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. And just to refresh your memory, these guys also control the northern, eastern end of Syria. And let's see what else we got here. This is just breaking news. I think that's okay for that story. But we got here. Here, before I continue on, if you want to call into the program, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. Again, if you want to talk to the one and only Trailer Park Prophet, you can do that. Just dial 646-716-8506. All right, let's go back to I was on the Drudge Report. I wanted to see if we could find any trendy news. And what is this? Movies measure TV ratings over 7 days. Let's see. Oh, this is a big story. ISA, more than 20 officials have lost or destroyed evidence after a probe is lost into the IRS for targeting conservative groups, Christian groups, Jewish groups. More than 20 officials. 20! Now, all of a sudden, oh! I can't find any of my emails dealings with nonprofit conservative groups trying to get the 501c status. Unbelievable. And let's see, another story, deleted Obamacare emails sought by Congress. Oh my God, feds hide Obamacare records from journalists. Oh, and there's another story. We're not going to have time to get to it, but you know, we have those, what are they called? What are they called? Not Attorney General. They're the actual people that are involved. They have oversight of all the various government agencies. God, I can't think of the name of them right now. Inspector Generals. Inspector Generals. And Inspector Generals are individuals that oversee the various government agencies, you know, like Obamacare, like Social Security, like the IRS. And 12 of these people have put together a letter and signed their names that said that the Obama administration is not being forthcoming with basic information that they're asking for. And inspector generals are there to ensure that these various government agencies are spending their money appropriately, that their hiring practices are legal and up to snuff, but they're the guarantee that what goes on in our government is above board. But this is unprecedented. That a group of these guys, these inspector generals, guys and women, you know, and they're like judges and lawyers, but to have 12 of them sign up to say that the Obama administration is not releasing information that they called for, it's never happened before. It's never happened before. And it tells you that the Obama administration is basically out of control. Our government's out of control. Okay, let's see. Oh, here, this is breaking news right here. ISIS captured another Christian city. I believe that's in Iraq. Now, let's see if we can get this to post. Okay, here we go. Barack Obama approves airstrikes on Iraq, airdrops aid. This is coming from the Wall Street Journal. They're saying, well, here, let's listen to this story. We got a story here we can listen to. Again, this is coming from the Wall Street Journal. The reporter is Julian Barnes. And there is another Christian city, a town of Singar, which is a Christian city that has gotten overrun. I guess, yeah, Sintar. Those are the people that are up on the mountain.
True tennis fans want to know what's happening. They don't want to just see what's happening. They want to know and understand why it's happening. Anybody can just put data up, but we want to get a reaction, make it far more interactive.
All right, this is an ad. I didn't realize there's going to be an ad in there. But this is definitely has to do with the airdrops and the airstrikes that Obama approved yesterday in Iraq. Okay, here comes the report, hopefully. Now listen. Yeah, here we go.
Today I authorized 2 operations in Iraq. Targeted airstrikes to protect our American personnel and a humanitarian effort to help save thousands of Iraqi civilians who are trapped on a mountain without food and water and facing almost certain death.
U.S. President Barack Obama authorizing military airstrikes against Islamist militants in Iraq to a war-weary American public. He says the U.S. cannot turn a blind eye to potential genocide. I'm Ramy Inocencio for Asia Today. The Wall Street Journal's Julian Barnes joins me right now from the Pentagon with more. Now, Julian, why this authorization right now?
Well, we've had a change on the ground in Iraq. For a while, we had the Islamic Sunni militants, the Islamic State, kind of holding after they had taken Mosul and Tikrit last weekend. They began to advance, and they advanced on a town near the Kurdish-controlled area and began what the administration is calling a genocidal campaign against the Yazidis.
The
In the
Yazidis.
meantime, other ISIL forces began moving on Erbil, the Kurdish capital, and that has ramped up this crisis.
Right. Now, genocide is the fear and the reason, at least in part, for this military action, this approval for military action. Tell us more about what that involves, who that involves. You mentioned the Yazidis there, and there's also another sect as well, right?
That's right. So the ideology of the Islamic State, which the U.S. calls ISIL or ISIS, is to push down, go after religious minorities. That includes Christian populations in a number of these Iraqi towns. That includes the Yazidis that are a pre-Islamic sect. They are not tolerated by many Sunni Arabs, and they have sometimes tough relations with the Kurds as well. In this case, they are mainly in this town of Sinjar, and that's where the Islamic State forces came this weekend. They pushed out the Yazidis, they killed some of them, they took some of them captive, and thousands of them fled to the nearby mountain, rushing out the mountain to take shelter. They had no food, they have no water. The UN said it was a humanitarian crisis, and now the U.S. is stepping in to provide those food and water.
Right, food, water, as well as that military action to try to prevent a potential genocide there, as President Obama said. Now, what form of action could this potentially take? In your article, you said that there are no boots that are going on the ground.
That's right. This is an authorization for military strikes. That means airstrikes. That would be most likely carried out by the A-teams flying off the aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf that have been patrolling Iraq for the last 6 weeks or so. But also there are other platforms from which these strikes could take place. Now, to be sure, right now this is an authorization for strikes. There have been no strikes so far. However, President Obama was clear that he has authorized strikes both to protect Erbil, where there are 40-some U.S. military personnel and scores of diplomats from the United States working, and also to help break the siege of the Yazidi mountain. If the Iraqi military forces are unable to come to the Yazidis' rescue, you will see, Mr. Obama said, the United States take action to strike at those ISIL forces.
Right, and what is the initial reaction on the ground over in the United States? We know a lot of the American public is really tired of military engagement in the Middle East.
They really are. When President Obama a few weeks ago announced that he was sending 300 military advisors over, which many foreign policy experts said a relatively small number, the American public reacted very badly. They saw the possibilities of restarting the Iraq war. And so Mr. Obama was very careful tonight to say there would be no boots on the ground. These would be limited and targeted strikes, and that there would not return to the Iraq war. He's emphasizing that over and over again because he knows the public is war weary.
Right, we're coming up on nearly a decade and a half since the first war when the U.S. engaged in the Middle East there. I'll leave it at that. The Wall Street Journal's Julian Barnes, thank you so much for joining us.
You see, the problem, though, if you're the leader, the commander of our armed forces, you don't show your hand. You don't show your hand. I don't think it's a good move. And the president said in his speech, and we might have that, he said that this is not going to be a prolonged engagement. We're not going to put boots on the ground. Well, ISIS is going to hear that. And they're going to see that all we have to do is just wait this guy out. And like the radical Islamists say, that America has the clocks and we have the time. And he would have done he would have done himself more service. He would have done the people in Iraq that are being perpetrated by ISIS better serve them by saying that, you know, we're not going to allow this to happen. We're going to do everything in our ability to wipe out anybody that's going to try and perpetrate genocide on any people. And then he could have thrown in Christian, Kurd, Muslim. But don't show your hand. It doesn't make any sense to show your hand, you know, but this is how this guy works. This guy meaning Barack Hussein Obama. You know, like saying, well, we're going to leave Iraq at a date certain. Well, ICE is just sitting there, you know, turning the pages of the calendar and waiting it out. America has the clocks and ISA has the time. It doesn't seem very sophisticated to me. You know, everybody says, oh, Barack Obama, he's so smart. He's one of the smartest people in the world. And really, if you look at the way he deals with tense situations, he's not very strategic. He's not very sophisticated. All right, if you want to call into the program, again, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. This is Daniel Gray. I'm the Trailer Park Prophet, coming at you live from beautiful downtown overcast Colorado, Crestone, Colorado, on Blog Talk Radio. All right, let's see. Oh, here is President Obama. Here's the whole speech. Iraqi minorities are trapped by ISIS. This is President Obama yesterday. And I don't know, he's in the White House. I can't remember what room this is. But let's give a listen to our president, Barack Hussein Obama. All right, Mr. President. Take it away.
I've said before, the United States cannot and should not intervene every time there's a crisis in the world. So let me be clear about why we must act and act now. When we face a situation like we do on that mountain, with innocent people facing the prospect of violence on a horrific scale, and we have a mandate to help, in this case a request from the Iraqi government, and when we have the unique capabilities to help avert a massacre, then I believe the United States of America cannot turn a blind eye.
Excuse me, President Obama, but come on, bro. The Iraqi government was asking you to help them months ago with ISIS. That's right. I'm trying to think of the president's name from Iraq. He was asking Obama to help out the Iraqi people months ago. And now this situation is spun out of control. So it's just disingenuous. That's all. All right. Mr. Obama, continue.
Possibly to prevent a potential act of genocide. That's what we're doing on that mountain. I've therefore authorized targeted airstrikes, if necessary, to help forces in Iraq as they fight to break the siege of Mount Sinjar and protect the civilians trapped there. Already, American aircraft have begun conducting humanitarian airdrops of food and water to help these desperate men, women, and children survive. Earlier this
Oh, Mr. President, I don't know about you, bro. You are, you know, the problem with Obama is he has no moral compass. He didn't have a good relationship with his father. In fact, he didn't have any relationship with his father. He doesn't know what it's like to be a man. He knows what it's like to be a man in the physical sense, but not in the mental sense. And all of his mentors were all communists, for crying out loud. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Zippity-doo. Oh! Mexico's Ministry of Health reports first confirmed case of Ebola. What? Location in Mexico City. Patient is one of 22 students who traveled to Africa for a vacation, and of course, you know, someone saying here now they can be sent to the damn border, which is true. And holy mackerel, that's like our worst nightmare. Now I'm learning, and I'm sure you're learning more and more about Ebola, but someone was saying here recently that Ebola can be contacted by just being in physical contact with a dead body of somebody that's died of Ebola. And there was another report I was reading that says that, hey, you're going to get Ebola breakout in the U.S. because of all of the aircraft travel that comes out of Africa through Europe to the United States. And that's the silent killer, Ebola, because the actual symptoms don't present themselves till a week or more after you've actually contacted the Ebola. So that gives you plenty of time to get over to the U.S. and then infect everyone that comes in contact with you, infect people on the airplane. I mean, this could get out of control, and some people are saying, scientists, I've read some articles that suggest that that's exactly the case. That's exactly what's going to happen. That people in America are going to have to deal with Ebola. And I don't know if you knew this. Yesterday, the president entertained some African leaders at the White House, which, by the way, I wish we had time to get into this. Most of those African leaders are brutal dictators. And they have a history of genocide within their own countries. In Africa, and President Obama said that when asked by a reporter, why doesn't the U.S. give this Ebola serum to Africa? And President Obama said the craziest thing. I was looking for this video. I couldn't find it. I didn't have enough time. But basically what he said is, to that question, why doesn't the U.S. make the serum available for Ebola that saved those 2 white people? And the president said basically that, those people over there in Africa, they don't really want any kind of serum to fight off Ebola. They're not anxious to get something like that. And it was the most insulting thing I think I've ever heard. To suggest that somebody, even a vicious dictator in Africa, wouldn't want to help their own people, or even help their own bureaucrats, help their own people, their own little power clique, help their own government people, help their own people at the hospital. I mean, even a tin horn dictator wants to have some cure for Ebola just to keep it out of his administration. But all of those African presidents said, yeah, hell yeah, we want the Ebola virus. We don't know what the president's talking about. But why would the president say such a thing? What an insult. What a profound insult. Oh, those Africans over there, they understand Ebola. A lot of people are going to die. No worries. They're, basically he's saying they're not smart enough or aware enough to take care of their people. They don't want to take care of their people. They're not sophisticated enough. They're not moral enough to want to keep disease out of their country. I mean, what the hell is that all about, Mr. President? I should do this story. I'm going to move on. Oh, talk about global warming. I got a thing here from Matthew Holliday, Firsthand Weather, and it shows the weather over the summer, and you have one area that's well above average temps and very dry over there by Washington, Oregon, Idaho. And then average temperatures and dry are mainly a part of California, Nevada, and Utah. And then above average temps and average to below average precipitation down by Southern California and southern New Mexico. But up north around the Great Lakes and up by Montana, well above average temps and average snowfall precipitation. And then the middle of the United States, well below average temps and average to above average snowfall. And then down in the south, all the way to Texas, all the way up to New York, well below average temps and above average snowfall precipitation. And then same thing with Florida, wet and cool. But most of the country is experiencing a cold spell. Where's that global warming when you need it? Oh, this story blows my mind. This is from the Washington Times. Russian bombers penetrated U.S. airspace at least 16 times in the past 10 days. Russian nuclear bombers conducted at least 16 incursions into the northwestern United States air defense identification zones over the past 10 days. What the hell is going on? It seems like Russia is thumbing their nose at President Obama. I mean, we're in a new Cold War with Russia, for crying out loud. And then we reported on Wednesday that NATO's having these amplified military exercises going on in Europe right now, and that could signal that Europe is worried about Russia and they're flexing their muscle, and it just seems like we're back into the Cold War again. All right, I better not do this story. Let's see. Anyways, if you want to go to my Facebook page, Trailer Park Prophet Dan Gray, you can see one of my favorite. I'll read this little piece here. This guy, we've done him before. He's that guy with that really deep, kind of raspy voice, Reverend James David Manning. And here's what he's saying. He says, Putin will out Obama as a homosexual. And remember, I was telling you this. You gotta know that Putin knows everything about Barack Hussein Obama, a.k.a. Barry Soetoro. Everything. I mean, Putin is ex-KGB. And so David Manning, Reverend James David Manning, saying Putin will out Obama as a homosexual. Putin will out Obama as a homosexual within 100 days. Wouldn't that be classic? Right before the November election. Reverend James Manning begins the countdown saying that within 100 days from August 4th, someone within the Russian government, perhaps Putin himself, will publicly call Obama a homosexual. Manning says the basis for his prognosis is firstly that he is a homosexual and promotes homosexuality. He says that his suspicions, which he doesn't have verification for, is that he was pressured into promoting a homosexual gender by his lover and former body man, Reggie Love. Oh my God. And there was all kinds of whispers all over the internet that Reggie Love was President Obama's lover, and that maybe Reggie brought in Obama's drugs and that kind of thing. And I know it's all rumor and we probably shouldn't be dealing with it, but it's so darn interesting. All right, Reverend Manning says also, talks to what he feels is a strong possibility that there are foreign agencies with photos of Obama, Love, and Michelle in compromising situations relating to a homosexual evidence. Manning talks of preparations that Putin is making for the Russian takeover of the superpower reigns and a PR campaign and the symbolism of a weak, feminine Obama versus a manly Putin. Then again, Manning has a surprise at the end that reveals that his views that there is more to Putin than meets the eye as well. I tell you, man, Reverend Manning he's got some cast iron testicles. I mean, really, you got to really ask yourself, what are you doing there, Reverend Manning? Because we know that anyone who is a detractor of Obama they get assaulted, or they get the IRS sicked on them, or they get customs, or I'm trying to think of some other agency, depending on your business, that if you're a big detractor of President Obama, man, the government agencies are going to come and take a look under your hood, check up from the neck up, kind of thing. Now, this is unbelievable. Now, this is Texas. And a Texas principal is ousted for suggesting students speak English. The school board declined to renew her contract, so Amy Lacey was effectively fired. And it was a big dust-up because she basically told the kids that they ought to speak English in our American schools, that us English-speaking people pay for. And she doesn't get her contract renewed. And there's other stories just like this. The progressive socialist statists are just turning our world into utter chaos. Okay. Oh! Australia. Muslims protest counter-jihad laws. Good for Australia. Funny, isn't it, how Muslims in Western countries like Australia, the U.S., and European nations never protest jihad. FMG, Islamic Jew hatred, honor violence, or killing, the persecution of religious minorities under the Sharia, or the current ethnic cleansing of Christians in Muslim countries. But, you know, here again, you know, we talked about the stuff going on in France. You know, France says you can't wear the, you know, the headscarf and cover your face anymore. And remember, Japan completely outlawed Islam in Japan. So now here's Australia kind of doing the same thing, you know, and, you know, there's been several state legislators here in the United States that have outlawed Sharia law. I'm trying to think of a few offhand. I believe Georgia did. Let's see, I can't think of anything else right offhand, but I'm all for that. I think people of Florida tried to do it. And here is another picture of a guy that received 400 lashes. I mean, there's a picture of him on my Facebook page. 400 lashes for being a gay person. And this is in Saudi Arabia. And you should see all these Islamic Muslim savages watching this gay guy get 450 lashes on his back. And he's holding on. He's handcuffed to this post, and all these people are watching. Man, unbelievable. Here's a story about Joe Biden, our vice president. He says of the flood of illegal minors pouring over the border, these are our kids. They are? This is via NBC News. Vice President Joe Biden on Wednesday said the stream of unaccompanied minors, which are only 20% of the people pouring over our border, again, who have crossed the southern border, are our kids. No, they're not. God, it makes me want to puke every time I hear that. Oh, it's for the children. Oh, what a load of crap-ola. Oh, and there's new information coming out about the IRS and the targeting of conservative groups. And new documents, this story is from townhall.com, new documents obtained and released through a Judicial Watch lawsuit show that the targeting of Tea Party and conservative groups came directly out of Washington, not some rogue organization in the IRS. And I've read other accounts that suggest that the actual order for the IRS to target conservative groups came out of the White House. In fact, some of the testimony that's coming out of the Congress right now is that it relates directly to the chief counsel for the President of the United States. So that goes right into the White House. The Mexican president is angry with the U.S. for enforcing our immigration laws. Well, sure he is. Because Mexico is exporting their criminals, exporting poverty, exporting their headaches. And who the hell cares what the Mexican president thinks what we do on our border? Unbelievable. Oh, I hope we have this. I think we got a video of this. This is from the U.S. State Department. I got this story from Weasel Zippers scouring the bowels of the internet. State Department spokeswoman Iraqis have to pull themselves together and stop being victims of genocide. I mean, are you kidding me? Oh, just stop being victims of genocide? I mean, most Iraqis don't have guns. They don't have cannons. They don't have tanks. They don't have machine guns. They don't have the will to run around and kill people like ISIS. But, I mean, what a totally insensitive thing to say. And this is from Marie Half, who is a spokesperson for the State Department. I mean, what an... I just don't know how you get that stupid. And I hope we have a video. No, we don't. But at any rate, you can go look on my Facebook page, Trailer Park Prophet. All right, if you want to call into the program, you can do so. Dial 646-716-8506. Again, that number if you'd like to talk to yours truly, 646-716-8506. All right, let's see. What do we got next here? I'm trying to... There's something I want to talk about. Oh, this isn't it, but this is kind of interesting here. It says that a building in New Jersey, town named after John F. Kennedy, will now be named after Obama. Oh, you want to live in Obamaville? Oh, this is a story for sure I wanted to talk about. Breaking news. Israel promises no more ceasefires. They're going to destroy Hamas. Right on. And Menachem Begin. God, I'm surprised that came into my head. Netanyahu said, personally, I have no problem with Israel turning Palestine into a giant... Oh, no, that's not... Excuse me, I don't know who's saying this. At any rate, Bibi Netanyahu said that no more ceasefires with Hamas. And, you know, he just said we're basically going to destroy Hamas, which I think is a great idea. Okay, now this story here, if you don't think that white elites, white progressive socialist statists don't like black people, this ought to be proof enough for you. Again, this story is from Weasel Zippers. Kerry tells Africans not to create more farms for starving children because it will cause global warming. Now, we got a video here. I can't believe he really said this, but we're going to play the video to hear it from his mouth. So, this is John Kerry yesterday in front of that group of African leaders at the White House. All right, Secretary of State John Kerry, take it away. Welcome back to the Trailer Park Prophet Show. All right, let's see. Might take a minute here. Seems like the internet's going kind of slow. President Kerry may be stuck in a ketchup bottle. In case you didn't know, he married the...
That's how you do it.
Here.
And now another part of this story is that certain agricultural processes can actually release carbon pollution and help contribute to the problem in the first place. It's a twisted circle. Always complicated.
No,
but
it
we
isn't.
also know there are ways to change that. For example, rather than convert natural areas to new farmland, a process that typically releases significant amounts of carbon pollution, we can instead concentrate our efforts on making existing farmlands more productive. Now, this is an area where African leaders have actually been ahead, and significantly ahead of the game for some time.
Come on. All right, this thing just kind of pooped out on me. But, I mean, he talks about the Africans as if they're a bunch of dummies, like they don't understand that there's modern farming techniques, and farmers are some of the most sophisticated people on the planet. I know that in the U.S., farmers were some of the first to get computers because they understood the value and utility of computers and how they were able to utilize that in their farm operations. And it's no different than the Africans. I mean, they know by looking at their neighbor that they're able to produce more food if they have a tractor, and that if they use herbicides and pesticides, they're able to have better yields off their farms. But, you know, here again, this is the Obama administration, in my mind, kind of talking down to the Africans. And we should do everything and anything we can to help them grow better food. But, you know, maybe, you know, here's another example that the headline really doesn't really hold up in the body of the speech. And I haven't read this whole article. I didn't have time to get into it, but I guess I jumped at the headline. I should have been a little more cautious. Now here's a report from the Jews News, and it says that they're reporting in Iraq that families are throwing their children from mountains off cliffs to keep them from the terrorists. I mean, that's just absolutely positively horrible. And here's Hillary Clinton attacking Israel, says they're conquerors who deny dignity. Former Secretary of State is under fire for slamming Israel, calling them an occupying force in her latest book. And let's see, we got this video. MSNBC American University professor claims anti-Semitism doesn't exist in Muslim countries. I listened to this video. We don't really have time to get into it, but I mean, I can't believe anybody could, well, I don't know, I shouldn't say I can't believe. It's just another example of just how callous professors are, and how our education system has been co-opted by radical Islamists, radical progressive socialist statists. I mean, I don't even know how you could say, here, maybe we will play it. I watched this before. This lady just makes you kind of angry, you know. I don't know how anyone could really be this unbelievably callous to even suggest such a thing. And let's see. Yeah, it's only a minute long. So here she is. This is on MSNBC, Melissa Harris Perry. And here's this professor.
There certainly was, after the creation of the State of Israel, and especially after the '67 war, an emigration of Jews from many of these Arab countries to Israel. But there still are Jewish communities. So, for example, there's a thriving Jewish community in Iran. I've been to the kosher restaurants. I've been to the Jewish hospital in Iran. There is not this deep-seated Arab-Jewish or, Muslim-Jewish animosity. There's not an anti-Semitism in the Middle East the way that there was in Europe, which is based on race, which is based on color, which is based on genes and biology. That doesn't exist in the Middle East. There's no history of that in the Middle East.
You saw a poll last week, young people 18 to 29. Only 25% think that it's justified what Israel's doing. 50% said no. People of color, same numbers. 50% say it's no. It's really the Obama coalition versus white conservatives. That's the only group saying, a majority saying what Israel's doing is justified. And I think the imagery from social media has changed it. It's unfiltered. It's no longer mainstream media telling the story. We're seeing it, and we're making decisions on our own about what we see, and that's why it's moving celebrities too.
And so, did you catch that there? I mean, he's turned it into a racial issue. And I've heard some other liberal commentators do the same thing, suggesting that the black people support the Palestinians and that they have a lot more in common with the Palestinians than they do the Israeli. But, I mean, that woman she's either bonkers or she's involved in psychological warfare. And I think choice B is probably the case. I mean, she's going to promote a narrative, and she doesn't care, if people believe her or not. She doesn't care if it's even based in truth. I mean, she hates the Jews so much that she has cognitive dissonance. I mean, she can't even see the truth. And what is she doing? I mean, she's just spreading hate. And she's teaching our children. Oh, this is a real good video if you have a chance to get to it. It's entitled, "We Are Being Destabilized on Purpose." Let's see. Oh, the NAACP boast of high black abortion rate. And I got a video. Maybe we'll see if we can play this real quick. I can't remember how long it is. But, I mean, more people die in the U.S. from abortion than any other thing.
Please welcome NAACP Executive Chairman Julian Bond.
I am proud to appear here today on behalf of the country's oldest and largest civil rights organization, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And one of the most important protections is the right to reproductive freedom. Open and equal access to family planning has been NAACP policy since 1968. We believe the right to reproductive freedom is as basic as the right to eat at a lunch counter. The right to choose is under vigorous and widespread attack. Providers around the country are forced to pay a cruel terrorism tax to protect themselves from murderers and assassins.
Go on.
He wrote an essay on birth control for Margaret Sanger. He attended a housewarming for her clinic in Harlem. He not only believed in full economic rights for women, but in a woman's equal right to control her body and her life. Every woman, he wrote in 1920, must have the right of procreation at her own discretion. And today, black women exercise that precious right at a rate far exceeding their percentage in the population.
Welcome to the Negro Project. Expose it. You know, and I don't know what to make of this. I mean, here's the head of the NAACP who is touting the greatness of abortion. And Margaret Sanger, who started Planned Parenthood, said blacks are the weeds of society. And blacks do have a disproportionate amount of abortions. So there's a black genocide going on. I think 16 million blacks have been aborted since Roe versus Wade. And here the head of the NAACP, the main spokesgroup for blacks, is saying, hey, blacks have a right to commit genocide, basically. Oh, and here's Al Sharpton. This is like an oldie but a goodie. He says, white folks was in caves while we was building empires. We taught philosophy and astrology and mathematics before Socrates and them Greek homos ever got around to it. Al Sharpton in 1994. Can you imagine if a white politician said that? Oh, get a load of this. Let's see, this comes from, where is this? The Upper Snake River. Oh, feds to spend, get a load of this, $450,000 to help Native Americans adapt to climate change. The Bureau, Freudian slip. I can't even say it. The BLM, Land Management, Bureau of Land Management, plans to spend up to $450,000 in taxpayer dollars to teach Native American tribes in the Great Basin region of Nevada about climate adaptation plans. Using our money to sow fear. Glenn Beck has a video here. I didn't get to listen to it. And he says, the increasing popular idea that has Glenn Beck saying, America, run for your lives. Glenn Beck on Thursday warned Americans to be extremely cautious of any new legislation preventing American companies from leaving the United States. Oh, that's another deal. Okay, we only got 90 seconds left. I want to get out of here. I'll see you guys on Monday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again for being here with the Trailer Park Prophet. We'll have a full show on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, thank you so much for supporting the Trailer Park Prophet. And have any kind of day you want. Adios, my friends.